Breaking news! Henry VIII has officially killed his fifth wife. Yup, that's me. You may be wondering how I got here. I think it's best if we just start from the beginning. 1491. My birth. Personally, I can't remember it, but if we're starting from the beginning, this is as early as it gets. Let's fast forward a little bit. This part gets a little boring. Being a royal, school was below me, of course, so I had private tutors for the earlier years of my life. I learned heaps of languages, just some of them being Latin, Italian, and French. What have you done? Unfortunately, I'm not the first Henry in my family. My dad decided to be a selfish and name me after him. King Henry VII was his official title, but honestly, more people referred to him as than your highness.
You really need to stop referring to Dad like that.
Get out of here, Arthur. You're supposed to be gone after 1502. We can just jump there, I guess. My beloved brother Arthur died in 1502, but between you and me, becoming the heir to the throne definitely softened the blow. Let's speed to 7 years later, 1509. My father dies. I'm king! Yay! I might be a measly 18-year-old, but trust me, I'm ready. Okay, here's where the story truly begins. My first wife, the brightest woman I had ever met.
Henry VIII married his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, later that year, in June of 1509. Daughter of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, she was an important figure in the government and the church. Originally, Catherine married Arthur, but with his passing, she remarried to King Henry upon his kinghood. Together, Catherine and Henry had 6 children, including 2 boys. However, most were stillborn or died in infancy. One girl, Mary, Bloody Mary, was the lone survivor. King Henry was not satisfied with Mary and was desperate for a male heir. Due to this, Henry sought a divorce from Catherine, but the Roman Catholic Church did not support this decision. After 7 years of avoidance, the Pope refused to annul their marriage in fear of alienating Catherine's nephew, the Holy Roman Emperor. Henry decided to solve this problem by leaving the church entirely and creating his own, the Church of England. He got his divorce and was free to move on to the next, in search of a male child.
Anne and Henry's relationship began as an illicit affair, but Anne was not content with being Henry's side piece. Though Henry was happy with their current situation, he was more focused on an heir. Henry sent Anne 17 love letters, sent a personal doctor to her when she was ill with sweating sickness, and married her in January of 1533. So ladies, if he wanted to, he would. Anne was the daughter of the Earl of Wiltshire, Sir Thomas Boleyn, though she spent part of her childhood in France. Eventually, she returned to England and lived in Henry's court. Anne gained many admirers, the subject of many residents' love. After seeing the adulation, Henry fell in love with her himself. Henry and Anne secretly wed, but later announced their matrimony to the public. Anne gave birth to Elizabeth, the future Queen of England, though her next pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. Over time, Anne's arrogance caused her to grow less popular in the court. Henry decided that he no longer loved her and ended their marriage how it started, with a mistress. Henry needed a way out, so naturally he decided to accuse her of adultery with many men, including her brother. Duh! She was sent to court, where she was unanimously voted guilty and was sentenced to beheading. While these accusations probably were not true, they worked, and Henry married his next wife 11 days later.
Jane Seymour and Henry VIII wasted no time. The day after Anne's execution, they were cuffed, and on May 30th of 1536, he showered her with gifts from the 104 mansions in 4 different countries and lots of money. She was technically queen on June 4th of the same year, but the plague in London kept her from being crowned. She couldn't care less about his last wife, Anne, putting her French fashion styles out of trend because those were just so last week, and took out the fun of Anne's extravagant decor in exchange for strict styles. She did that while ignoring the fact she shared a grandma with Anne and his first wife. On October 12, 1537, after 2 days and 3 nights of a difficult birth, she had King Edward VI, but Henry was like, "Thanks, you can go now," for the next week, not letting her into the christening because that was the custom at the time. And she died on October 24th. Henry switched up after that because Jane definitely won the best funeral prize. She was the only wife with a queen's funeral, and Henry wore black for 3 months, plus he got pretty fat. He even was buried next to her at Windsor Castle, maybe because he was happy his daughter Mary got a connection with her.
Anna grew up in the quaint little state of Cleves in Germany. While it was small, it was majorly involved in European politics. This became King Henry's motivation for the marriage. After Henry's creation of the Church of England, he was not on the best of terms with the Roman Catholic Church. He was greatly inclined to align himself with those of similar interests, leading him to Cleves, the little state that decided to challenge the Pope's authority. He swiftly sought a matchmaker to find him his new wife. This is when he was matched with Anne, the young girl who was educated, did not speak his language, and was a casual 24 years younger than him. The king had made his decisions, and Anna was not keen on the death penalty, so she made her journey to England and awaited as Henry planned his disguised romantic first meeting. Anticipation was thick in the air, New Year's bells rang in the distance, and Henry decided she was one ugly mother. This realization resulted in a reluctance to marry Anne, though his desire for an heir prevailed, and they wed on January 6, 1540. As you could probably imagine, this did not last long. After Henry's repeatedly spoken distaste for Anna, their marriage was annulled on July 9, 1540, with a classification as an invalid matrimony and no kids to show for it. King Henry, being the gracious person that he is, offered Anne money and property in exchange for remaining in England, and Anna, the baddie that she is, took the deal, living out the rest of her days in luxury. She maintained a good relationship with the king and was even able to connect with his future wives and children.
Aww. Henry's pedophilia was exposed when he married Catherine Howard. Even though it wasn't unusual for the time, Catherine was 17 when he was 49. Before that, Catherine was in a relationship with her music teacher, also with the name Henry, who was 20 plus years older than her, so she obviously had a type. The secretary of the Dowager Duchess swooped in and they had a relationship until 1539. So Catherine thought, I could do better, and went for the higher-up royals. She was in Anne of Cleves' court, briefly going out with Thomas Culpeper, Henry's friend. But then Henry started taking interest, and you don't really say no to the king. He sent her gifts, and they were married on July 28, 1540, so you would think Thomas was forgotten about. Instead, she thought, why have one when you can have both? And so used Thomas as a side piece, meeting him in secret, and her ladies-in-waiting covered for her. However, another Thomas Cranmer, decided to snitch on her and wrote a letter to the king. And so her queen title got taken away in November 1541. Henry was mad at his friend Culpeper and decided to go one step further to blame the secretary of the Dowager Duchess, and had them both executed for treason. You would think that would be enough, but Henry was like, it's been a while since I beheaded one of my wives. So 3 days after he executed the guys, he beheaded Catherine. Henry didn't want other kings to have the same embarrassment, so he went on over to make an act called the Royal Assent by Commission Act of 1541. A year after Catherine's beheading, another Catherine came around and met Henry. But once again, another Catherine was in love with another Thomas. She wanted to be with Thomas Seymour, but once again, Henry went and played his king card, so Catherine gave up Thomas. She had already been widowed twice, but still got married July 12, 1543. She was Protestant, so English people were super anti to her and tried to break them up because they didn't want Henry to switch up and suddenly be all Protestant. Catherine wanted to stay queen, not just of England, but the first to be of Ireland too. So she said, sorry, I'll limit my word count, and wrote some books instead. She was the first queen to write a book under her own name. One of them was Prayers of Meditation in 1545. And she didn't cheat on him, which kept her from being beheaded. The main reason was because Henry actually died. So she could marry Thomas and have baby Mary Seymour. She died right after that, though, ending her life with 4 marriages total and getting the last dibs on the queen of the court of Tudor. Books kept her name from being forgotten without Henry to yap about her.
So you tell me, am I the bad guy for killing 2 of my wives?